Hello, good evening. My computer was acting funny. I'm started now. Is the video going, Sammy? Give me a yes or a no. I tried to start the video and it just was like it was buffering, just spinning. So I had to refresh it. So am I live now? Can you see me? Is the video going? So let me know if I'm up and running. So I'm good now. Okay. Let me take a drink real quick. Sammy, you asked what have I been doing today? Well, finished up stuff for this week, and I'm getting ready for TJ is doing his thesis presentation where he does a big old speech over a book that a paper that he's been writing for a few months. So that's happening tomorrow morning, and while we have to Zoom in the afternoon. And then I cooked dinner. We had grilled chicken and then Alfredo sauce with some noodles and some broccoli. So it was yummy. So, Sammy, what are you waiting for? Are you ready? You waiting for the story? Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. We're going to finish it up tonight and maybe start book 3. We'll see what tonight holds. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining in. Normally, my nephew watches too. So, Hudson, if you're watching, Aunt Carrie loves you. So, enjoy the story. I know. Here we go. You played an Egypt game. Cool. That's awesome. I'd love to hear about it. Take some pictures and let me know all about it. So here we go. My Father's Dragon, Book 2, Elmer and the Dragon. We're going to finish up the book tonight. Now, remember a celebration, and the Canaries had never seen what a celebration is. So they did a celebration. Everything that came out of the treasure chest, they laid out for the Canaries, and they put the watch around the dragon's neck, and Elmer got the harmonica. So here we go. Chapter 9, Farewell. Chapter 9, Farewell. Looks like the color does weird stuff again, so I apologize about that. I think I ought to be getting home, said Elmer the next morning as he ate the last 10 tangerines. How do you feel, Dragon? Fine. Why, I could fly to the moon and back. Good, said Elmer, because I think today is my father's birthday. He looked at the plates and the pots and the cups and the silverware and the bags of seeds spread all over the pine needles and asked, King, what shall we do with your part of the treasure? Dear, dear, said the king. Well, we can plant the seeds, but I guess we ought to put the rest back in the chest. But my gold, I must have my gold. I insist upon at least 1 silver spoon, cheeped the queen. Then I'll save out the seeds and a spoon and 3 pieces of gold, suggested Elmer, who was anxious to be off. Better make it 5 pieces of gold, said the king. I really ought to give 1 to Flute. Elmer packed the chest and gave the key back to the king. Shall we bury it again? He asked. I suppose so, said the king with tears in his eyes. I hate to think of it way down there, but at least it will be safe from robbers. But never mind about putting back the dirt. We can do that ourselves. My question is, what are canaries going to do with gold? Are they going to the store and buying something? Or does he just want to be rich with gold? I don't know. So the dragon carefully lowered the chest into the hole while Elmer put away the shovel. Then Elmer packed his knapsack with the 3 bags of gold and the sterling silver harmonica, carefully wrapping the harmonica and the burlap bag left over from the rescue. Goodbye, everybody, and thanks for a wonderful visit, he shouted to all the canaries. You can count on me. I'll never tell your secret to a soul. Goodbye, Elmer, and thanks again, said the king, who was already busy giving orders to the other canaries about filling up the hole. Dropping it in the hole. They're about to fill it in. Flute rode on Elmer's shoulder as he and the dragon walked back to the cliff. Goodbye, Elmer. Please give my best to your mother. She really was awfully good to me, you know. I will, Flute, and goodbye, said Elmer, wondering if he didn't have some little thing to give Flute. He looked once more in his knapsack and found that he still had 3 sticks of chewing gum and a half a package of rubber bands. I don't suppose you'd like to have these, he asked. I'd love them, said Flute. I'll keep them with my gold piece, and I'll be even richer than the king because I'll keep my treasure where I can see it every day. Flute told Elmer and the dragon the best way to fly to Nevergreen City, and then Elmer hopped aboard, waving farewell to Flute and Feather Island. So he's hopping on his back, on the shoulders, and then he gave him 3 pieces of gum and the rubber bands. And that's all of chapter 9. So farewell to Feathers Island. Chapter 10. This is the end. Woo! Elmer flies home. Chapter 10. So there is the dock. Elmer flies home. Chapter 10. So flew off, Sammy, should actually be F-L-E-W, ooh, that we do use at the end of English words. English words do not end with U or I, remember? Except for flu. That flu is actually like the illness flu. Oh, that English language. So weird and wonky. Chapter 10, Elmer flies home. They flew and flew, the dragon trying hard not to look at or think about the wet, wet ocean. Elmer sat watching the shadow rippling over the waves beneath them, feeling washed by the cool morning breeze. The dragon was strong and well-rested, being nicely stuffed with skunk cabbages and ostrich ferns, and they hadn't stopped once when he shouted towards evening, I think I can see land ahead. So do I, and I think it's the coast of Popsicornia, said Elmer. Yes, I'm sure it is. There's Firefly Lighthouse. It won't be long now. It's just a few miles up the coast from here. Where shall I land when we get there? Asked the dragon. Now that I'm free, I should hate to be put in a zoo or a circus or something like that. Well, it'll be dark soon. I think you could land on a wharf without attracting attention. Of course, we'll have to be quiet. They flew up the coast, passing the lighthouse and the village of Fruitoria and the town of Custard, and finally came to the outskirts of Nevergreen City. There it is, cried Elmer. See that dark patch? Is Evergreen Park. I live just across the street. Could you land on that long wharf just ahead? I think so, said the dragon, but I do hope nobody sees me. He circled lower and lower and landed gently on the end of the wharf. Elmer slid off and whispered, Gosh, it was fun knowing you. I'm going to miss you and flying and everything, and thanks so much for bringing me home. It was fun, wasn't it? Sniffled the dragon. And I'll never forget how you came all the way to Wild Island just to rescue me. By the way, Elmer, I really think you ought to have this beautiful gold watch and chain. I can't see it on me, and anyway, I don't even know how to tell time. Are you sure? I could give it to my mother, but haven't I got something you'd like to trade it for? Well, as a matter of fact, I was wondering if you still had some of those delicious pink lollipops. I have 4 left over, said Elmer, getting them out and taking off the wrappers. Would you like all 4 at once? Yes, said the dragon. They stood there quietly in the dark, the dragon sucking 4 pink lollipops, and Elmer whispered, Where will you go from here? I'll go to find my family in the great high mountains of Blue Land, said the dragon, thinking of his 6 sisters and 7 brothers, and his gigantic mother and father. I'd like to go there too someday, said Elmer. Well, maybe you will, but listen, I hear voices. Men coming down the wharf. Quick, you better hurry. Goodbye, dear dragon. The dragon flew up into the darkness just as two watchmen thumped by to make their rounds. Elmer hid behind a crate and heard one say, Funny, I was sure I heard voices, and I know I heard something big flying just overhead. Look, 4 lollipop wrappers, said the other watchman, who had been searching the wharf with a lantern. Said the first watchman, and then they walked down the wharf. Elmer followed them at a distance, and while they were telling another watchman about the lollipop wrappers, he ran as fast as he could through the streets, through Evergreen Park, all the way home. So here's your watchman hearing the voices with the lantern, the wrappers at the bottom, and then here you have the dragon making his exit. And there's Elmer. See him hiding behind the box? He leaped up the porch steps, and 3 at a time, yelling, Mother, Daddy, I'm home! Happy birthday! Mr. and Miss Elevator rushed to the door and threw their arms around Elmer. Oh, Elmer, how glad we are to see you. You don't know how worried we've been these past 2 weeks. Where on earth did you go? That little boy was gone for 2 weeks? Woo! As a mom, I'd be scared and worried about that poor boy. I had an important job to do, said Elmer, staring at the living room sofa. Why, there's my friend, the old alley cat. Yes, said Mrs. Elevator. As much as I've always hated cats, I just didn't have the heart to turn her out. She came to the door the day after you left, and I kept thinking, Elmer loved that cat. I really ought to take good care of her. And do you know, I've grown awfully fond of her in just 2 weeks. Elmer's mom is taking care of the alley cat now. What a change. Elmer rushed over to the cat and whispered, I rescued the dragon, and he just flew me home. He was right where you told me he'd be. Look, Elmer sees his mother and father. He's back home. Sorry, my pages keep sticking together. You did what? Asked Mr. Elevator. Oh, nothing, said Elmer. By the way, here's your birthday present. Elmer gave his father the 3 bags of gold and played Happy Birthday on the sterling silver harmonica. And here's a beautiful gold watch and chain for you, Mother. But where did you ever get these things? Gasped Mr. and Miss Elevator. That's a secret. I can never tell, said Elmer, rummaging in the icebox for something to eat. The end. Elmer made it back home. So we have Mother and Father and Elmer and the alley cat, and Mom got a watch and a chain. Dad got gold, bags of gold, and Elmer played Happy Birthday on the harmonica. So we have time for the first chapter of The Dragons of Blue Land. Eek! So this is actually the home of Dragon. So we're going to see where he came from. We know he has 6 sisters and 7 brothers and a gigantic mother and father. And they live in Blue Land. So I'll watch your channel tonight, okay? Dad shared the link. I can't wait to look at it. So here we go. Dragons of Blue Land, Chapter 1. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. Whew. Chapter 1, The Hiding Place. I am going to say that is the dragon leaving Evergreen City. I mean, I don't know. That's just my guess by looking at the picture. So we'll see. I don't know the dragon's name. They haven't given him a name yet. They just keep calling him the dragon. So we'll see if he ends up with a name. And if not, by the end of the book, then we'll name him by the end of the story if he doesn't have a name. Okay. Over the harbor, past the lighthouse, away from Nevergreen City flew the happy baby dragon. I'm on my way home to the great high mountains of Blue Land, he shouted to the evening skies. At last, I'm off to find my 6 sisters and 7 brothers and my dear gigantic mother and father. You're going to name him Nellie? Okay, so you're going to call him Nellie. Okay, we'll see. He might have a name. We haven't found out yet. He sped northward over the coast of Popsicornia, and he flew all night through the dark, scudding clouds toward awful desert, which surrounded the mountains of Blue Land. I must be careful, he thought to himself, that nobody sees me on my way, but I'll have to stop and rest somewhere. Where can I hide? I've grown as big as a buffalo, and my blue and yellow stripes and gold-colored wings will certainly attract attention. The darkness faded into morning, and looking down, he saw green meadows and fields of corn and potatoes, a road wandering past barns and houses, and a brook zigzagging back and forth across the road. Perhaps I can find a bridge to hide under, thought the dragon, but I'll have to hurry. Soon the farmers will be up. He swooped and coasted down to a place where the road crossed the brook. Gently he landed and padded down the bank to hide underneath the bridge. But there wasn't any bridge. The road had been built right over the brook, and the water flowed under the road through a culvert, a long round tunnel. And the culvert was too small for a dragon to hide in. I'll try another crossing, he said to himself, scrambling up the bank and galloping down the road as fast as he could to get to the next crossing. But here, too, a very small culvert carried the water under the road. So here he is, and the culvert right there is, if you see a road, it is the circular metal tube that runs underneath like a driveway or a road, so it's not a bridge. And so the culvert is actually too small for a dragon to fit into. So then he goes to the next crossing, and still the culvert's too small. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, he muttered as he galloped on farther between a yellow farmhouse and a big yellow barn. Just as he was passing, he heard a rooster scream and a window slam shut in the house. Where shall I hide? Where shall I hide? He panted. And then he came to a third crossing. He tumbled down the bank and found another culvert, but a big culvert, big enough for a baby dragon to hide in. He crawled inside, wading through shallow water that cooled his hot, sandy feet. What if someone in the farmhouse saw me? He kept thinking as he stretched, just far enough to nibble the tasty skunk cabbages and marsh marigolds growing outside the culvert. And then he ate and cooled off. He felt tired and happy and almost safe, and he dozed off to sleep in the culvert. So here he is flying past the yellow house and the yellow barn. And here he is finding the culvert. See the word culvert? Culvert. So here's the culvert that he is sleeping in. It's just big enough for him to fall asleep in. that's all of chapter 1. Ding dong, the chapter's done. So that leaves us with, I guess, 9 chapters to go because most of these books are 10 chapters long. So, yeah. Oh, this one has 11 chapters. So, tell you what I'll do. Let me see how long this one is. No, this one can wait till tomorrow. So, we end tonight with finishing chapter 1, where our baby dragon is asleep in the culvert trying to get to the mountains of Blue Land. Okay. But I will give you a sneak peek of tomorrow. Tomorrow's chapter is entitled 2 new characters, Mr. and Mrs. Wagon Wheel. So there we have it. Chapter 2 tomorrow, Mr. and Mrs. Wagon Wheel. Okay. And so these are this is actually the map that goes along with the story we're reading now. So we have Blue Land. Here we have there's the bay. Here is the big culvert. Here's a brook, Popsicornia, Nevergreen City. Here's Awful Desert. And then here is, I think, a sneak preview of what is to come in our book that we just started, The Dragons of Blue Land. So there's your sneak peek. So that's what we have for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic evening. Thanks for coming to read along with me. I hope you enjoy your evening tonight. If you're in my 2nd grade, I'll see you at Zoom tomorrow at 3 p.m. Because I have TJ's event tomorrow in the morning. And then everyone else their families have other things going on. So we will reconvene tomorrow, 7 o'clock. I love you. Have a great evening, and I will talk to you soon. Sweet dreams as you dream of dragons in Blue Land. Good night.